Hey everybody, what's going on? James here, your ABX audiophile. I don't know about you, but does it seem like there is a brand new DAC coming out every 3.7 seconds? I don't know. We've got reviewers coming out daily with new DACs. 33 bucks, it's the best hi-fi you've ever heard. $10,000, you'll have to mortgage your house, but it's gonna be hi-fi. I don't know, man. I think we need a timeout on the Dac Madness. Let's talk about what's working for me, what I'm using in my system, and some of the ways that I think you can save some money and get a really, really nice DAC. All right, if you did not know, we are the world's only 100% nonprofit charity reviewer. To date, we have donated over $3,000 to youth musical programs. I appreciate all of you who have gone over to the Patreon and subscribed, membered on the YouTube, in our Discord, all of you that have donated. Thanks to all of our great vendors and partners who have donated gear to us to auction off. Mark Audio, Vanatu, AF Audio Cables, all of these great folks. La Dolce Audio has done a ton of stuff for us, raised over $3,000 for charity, and just awesome. It's just awesome. So make sure you guys check the links below, hit that subscribe button, become part of the great work we're doing, and enjoy the show. Okay, so when it comes to a DAC, we all know you've got this camp where everybody says, well, DACs don't matter, all DACs sound the same. I'm here to tell you that that is not true. I'm sorry. If you have a system that's resolving enough, clear enough, detailed, focused enough, you can really start to hear the nuances of what different DACs are going to bring to your system, and how they're going to affect your soundstage, the tonality, the detail, the focus, the dynamics, all of the stuff that we talk about as audiophiles. A DAC is a very important part of that. And so today I kind of wanted to talk about some of the DACs that I've been through and kind of what I'm using in my system today. So I started out this journey many years ago with things simple as like the Chromecast puck that you would, 3.5 millimeter out to RCA, and it had these little DACs in there. Moved up to like a Blue Sound node, which was a big step for me. And then I jumped to an external DAC on the Blue Sound node, went to like a Cambridge 100, went through a couple of those different Cambridges, started kind of moving up the ladder, if you will, on the DACs. And I kind of started getting into a space of around $750 to $1,000 brand new for a DAC. And that's really kind of where I started to say, okay, this is a space that puts me into that hi-fi sound, but doesn't really break the bank. So first of all, that's kind of where I felt the base of where you really need to kind of step into. Now there are some diamonds in the rough, on the cheap side that you can find that will give you really good sound and bang for your buck. But I really believe, in my experience, that until you get up to about that $750,000 mark, you really don't start to get the top quality sound of the DACs and what they can do for your system. So let's talk about some of those. Okay, I talked to you earlier about maybe being able to get a really good deal on a DAC, right? So you might have heard, I was just talking about $750 to $1,000 to really get into the space of DAC where, you're really going to start noticing some hi-fi sound, really nice detail, focus, clarity. Like all of these pieces are going to come together. You might be able to find a cheaper DAC that adds a little bit more focus, or maybe soundstage is a little bit better. Typically, you'll find these cheap DACs that they kind of do one thing really well. And then maybe everything else is just kind of mediocre. And so kind of what I discovered as I journeyed through this thing is that that's really the space that you want to be. So you might tell yourself, well, James, man, I'm not going to spend $750, $1,000 on a DAC. That's insane, man, And so that's a valid point. And so let's take a look at the used market, right? Both of the DACs that I use today, well, all three of the DACs that I use today actually, all came from the used market, and I got them for about a third of the price, under half in at least in most cases. So the first one that I wanted to talk about was, boom, can we get this focused up on it? Probably not. It's not going to love me today. This is the Shit Bifrost 2. 32. This is an old school DAC. It is an absolutely phenomenal DAC. The clarity and detail and focus on this DAC is absurd. It's got all of the inputs and outputs that you can need fully balanced. I mean, this thing, made in USA. These guys are awesome. You know this company. I love this DAC. And the thing that I love about this DAC is it does really, really good bass. It really, really emphasizes and tightens up and really makes nice bass. It's kind of a neutral sound. It stages pretty decent, good wide sound stage. I wouldn't say that you get a ton of holographicness from it. But again, I think I got this for $330 maybe. $300 right in there, used on the market. This is the DAC that I use at my desktop right here. Absolutely phenomenal DAC. You know, and one final thing I want to point out too, you know, we talked about, you know, looking on the used market and kind of seeing what you can do in that space. And you know, I recognize that availability in some areas to individuals is going to be tough. You know, transportation, meeting up, you know, all that stuff. You're buying a used product. Do you get the warranties? I mean, what's the liability and risk here? You know, I recognize all that. And so before you start blowing me up in the comments about, damn, James, you know, I can't find nothing used. All I'm saying at the end of the day is just take the time to search a little bit, check your local hi-fi shops if you have them, check eBay, Craigslist, Reverb, some of these used marketplaces, hi-fi, audio, I can't remember the, oh man, I'm drawing a blank, but there's a bunch of them. I'll post a couple links in the descriptions below on them, but just do your due diligence and don't be in such a rush to go out and buy the DAC that whatever the new reviewer is talking about, that's some giant slayer and it's going to change your entire system, because I guarantee you it's not going to change your system. These DACs are little changes. They all bring something to the table. And so it's a give and take. And so, you know, don't rush out and buy the brand new one. You're going to put it in your system and then you're going to like it because you just bought it and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And then after a while, it's going to be, yeah, it's a pretty good DAC. And you'll put your old one back in. You'll be like, that's a pretty good DAC too, you know? So just do your due diligence, slow down a little bit. Save your money, check the used market, do your research, you know, and understand, you know, the biggest thing to understand, I think, for me is that, you know, us as reviewers, I say how things sound to me in my system, in my room, to my ear, in my mood, right? And so every other reviewer is doing that exact same thing. It is not going to sound that way to you. Nobody has a PrimaLuna DiaLouge Premium with an EverSolo, a Denafrips Aries 2, and a massive set of custom DIY open baffle speakers. I mean, if you put this Denafrips Aries 2 in your system, you're going to have some of that soul in there, but it's going to sound different to you probably, right? So, you know, just think about that when you're working through some of this stuff, and take your time and don't be influenced by us reviewers on what to buy. You know, I'm more of a functionality kind of thing. I think, like I said, if you can get into the $750 to, you know, $1,000 range for a DAC, if you can get it used, that's awesome. But that's where you're going to kind of find that sweet spot, in my opinion, in my ear with my systems. So anyway, some thought there. Okay, so the next DAC that I kind of wanted to cover with you is probably my all-time favorite DAC, and I've listened to a lot of DACs. Black Ice FX Tube DACs, which is another one I have, great one. Schumann Ladder DACs, all of the DACs that I listed, the Bifrost we just talked about. This one that I have now is probably my favorite DAC overall. I feel that it gives you the widest range of benefit throughout the soundstage. So it gives you nice clarity, a nice sweetness to the high end, to the treble regions. You still get a nice controlled bass, good mids, good vocals. It's just an overall well-performing DAC. And the thing that I really love about this DAC, I am a soundstage junkie. And so I can get a little bit, I can deal with a little bit of a diffused soundstage and maybe a little bit more focus. if I can have a bigger, deeper sound stage that projects more into the room, and I can kind of get this holographic sound stage moving around me. And that, of course, is the OG Denafrips Aries 2. This is the original one. It still has all the original software in it. I did no upgrades to it. You can update the software in these, but I've kind of read online, you know, maybe it cleans it up a little bit too much, and you lose a little bit of that little bit of that sound stage and the magic that kind of was in the original one of these. Again, fully balanced outputs. It's got all your inputs that you need here. It's got the power supply built in, USB, opticals, coaxials, very, very basic. You've got non-oversampling, sampling mode, all the different selections here on the front, power button. This is the DAC that sits in my main system. I've tried different stuff in there. I've put the Bifrost 2. I've put the Schumann Ladder DAC in. I've put the Black Ice FX Tube DAC in there. We had the Blues Node Sound with a couple different DACs, you know, kind of doing that. I have had the EverSolo in there with its DAC, which is phenomenal. But at the end of the day, the Denafrips Aries 2 kind of takes the cake for me. And, you know, again, you can get that on the used market. They're all over the place. And so as you're moving into this DAC space, one thing that I've realized is once you get into the DACs, there are very, very small changes that these DACs give to the soundstage and the overall performance of your system. Considering, you know, like if you change speakers, it's a pretty massive change. If you change an amplifier or a preamp, you know, pretty massive change. You know, the DACs kind of, for me, fit somewhere in between the amp, preamp, and like cabling. So RCA cables, you know, tuning your system with those, speaker wires, things like that. You know, you're going to see the tiniest bit of changes to your soundstage, and you really have to get into a resolving system to even be able to start to hear some of those. But the DAC kind of fits right in between that and kind of some of your main components. So for me, you can put a DAC in that makes a vast change, especially if you go to kind of a lower end DAC. You know, like the SMSLU, the new one that came out that rated pretty well, the digital one that IWI reviewed. Kelly actually has it for review right now. Gives a nice clean focus soundstage, but you know, it's just got some shortcomings. We're going to be doing a review on that one pretty soon too. So you get what you pay for in this industry, and I would just say check the used market because you can get a lot of good stuff there, and there's just a lot of stuff that you can get that will really perform for you, and really provide you with some good quality sound. It's going to last you a long time. It's built very well. I mean, these things are heavy, man. They got transformers in them. I mean, this is a massive. For a DAC, this is insane. You know, some of these cheap budget ones you get, they weigh like half a pound, you know, and they're in a box like this big. And, you know, they do the job. Yeah, they do the job. But anyway, try to get up into that $750 to $1,000 range if you can. That's really where you're going to start getting some good stuff. That's what I use in my system. My Bifrost sits up here. My tube DAC, the Black Ice FX DAC kind of bounce in between my desktop and my home theater. I kind of switch those out a little bit. And then the Denafrips Aries 2 is my main go-to DAC that sits in my 2-channel reference system. So I hope y'all pull the plug on the Dac Madness, check the used market. There's much better stuff that you could be spending your money and time on. And you know, at the end of the day, whatever sounds good to you, just enjoy it and use it. And I appreciate y'all being here. We'll see you on the next one.